right, welcome back to the Mach 1 podcast. It's been a few without me, but I am excited for this one. You got Coach RJ,
Coach Patrick.
Coach Jason.
and we're going to be hitting you with a little Q&A, so some questions that were brought in. We'll answer them in the next episode, but here specifically, we're going to touch on these topics. So, Coach Patrick, you want to start me off with the first question?
For sure. So we submitted a few questions. First one's going to be the best way not to be crippled after leg day, referring to DOMS. So just the good old bro session where, you can't walk for about 3 or 4 days after a stellar leg day. How do we mitigate that?
All right. That's a
I'd
good
say-
start. Good
I
first
mean,
question. Yeah.
You framed it like it was a bro that asked that.
It was kind of a bro, yeah.
So I'm going to assume that bro doesn't hit legs regularly.
Yeah.
So I think the first recommendation is maybe build up a tolerance and a sensitivity by not skipping leg day. That would be like advice number one.
Yeah.
And maybe from a more like legitimate standpoint, legs, if you train them really hard, take a lot out of you. So having a good, not only just like a good program, but a good sense of like fatigue and load management. I think like, let's just take the deadlift, which a lot of people put on their leg days. That's like the ego lift. And a lot of people, the way they do deadlifts is just max out every week. So try not maxing out every week. Some weeks go lighter, some weeks go heavier. So change up your volume, train them regularly. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the first step in this problem here, or this question is definitely train legs. If you do them randomly, I guess we could use maybe like a runner's example. Somebody who doesn't run, you go out and run a marathon, we're probably going to be pretty sore. And then Mr. Dom comes in and, really sets you straight. Yeah. So Pat, what is DOMS?
So DOMS is delayed onset muscle soreness. So if you've experienced this and you relate to this, that funny feeling, 2-3 days after your workout when you can't sit down, you kind of fall back to get on the toilet, you're locking your knees and leaning forward to get up out of your chair. Like that's good old fashioned DOMS. And getting into like the science of DOMS. So as you go through, you break down the muscle, you're going to get a bunch of like lactic buildup. That lactic buildup has to be buffered. That buffering is going to take some time to go through and flush itself out. You're going through muscle regrowth, so you need to get in enough parasympathetic state of that rest and digest so you can rebuild. Like all these things take time, and from that point, I think it's just a matter of you're kind of biting off more than you can chew when it comes to load stimulus. And if you can train legs more frequently, you can pull back the volume of which you hit legs. You don't have to like max it out and crush it every week, like kind of how most people tend to hit legs in your deadlift example. So doing a little bit of more accessory volume, kind of cutting back on your total workload on the main lifts as well, and then hitting it maybe twice a week, you'll probably see a better return on investment when it comes to that leg day terror.
Yeah. And, to kind of follow up on that, I think, number one, do we chase DOMS? And then two, like what happens if I'm sore? Like what do I do to help get rid of that soreness?
I wouldn't say you chase DOMS. I think that's the worst part about leg day is the DOMS.
I agree. I don't think you should chase soreness. It's more of like, hey, this is a consequence of what you did, right?
Yeah.
Which sometimes is a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. If you're sore, though, movement is medicine. I think let's just keep it simple at that. Like whether you're hitting the foam roller, going for a walk, just keeping the body and the joints in motion. Because if you have, DOMS, you're likely going to be stiff. And if you just sit around being stiff, that's
stiffer.
Yeah, you're just going to get stiffer.
Motion is lotion.
Motion is lotion. So, yeah, I'd say that's like the most simple, effective advice.
Boom.
Love that.
Yeah, I think good start for the first question.
Yeah.
So
What's question number 2?
So question number 2, stay with us guys. This is a multi-part question. Muscle fatigue, mental fatigue, nervous system fatigue. Is it individualized or are there some general ways to identify which one you're experiencing?
Okay.
Part of that,
Two.
are there certain workouts that fatigue the nervous system more than others? Can you avoid it? How long does it take to recover? And how do you know if you're recovered? So with that, I think let's kind of break it down into a few chunks.
Yeah, the two main things is what are the different types of fatigue and how to recognize it, and what causes that kind of fatigue and what to do about it.
For sure.
So another like recovery oriented question.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I guess, the difference between muscle fatigue, mental fatigue, and nervous system fatigue.
Yeah, I guess starting with the first one, muscle fatigue is a localized fatigue. You're going to be super sore in your legs or your arms,
like DOMS.
And you have DOMS, which we just spoke about, and it's primarily the muscle that's sore.
And I think we can dive into muscle fatigue a little bit more on the in workout or in training way. So as you're going through your first, second set, if you're reaching that point of fatigue where that third set you're not able to hit your reps, the muscles are just so pooled up with blood, they're sore, you're just not able to reproduce the strength like numbers repetitively, that's a sign of muscle fatigue as well. So you can see that within the workout. You can also see that for a few days after the workout in terms of like that post leg day DOMS that we just hit on. So there's a few different ways we can look at muscle fatigue.
No, I think keep it short. Yeah.
Keep it short. Yeah. So yeah, that's, I think, muscle fatigue is in a nutshell. Then the next one would be mental fatigue.
Yeah. I think kind of tackling like your mental fatigue and your nervous system fatigue. Mental fatigue alluding to like maybe like the motivation or the discipline to get to the gym, right? Or to get through a training session or to get through a training block, right? I think if you're kind of battling yourself, like, should I go? Yeah. I think that's like your sign of your mental fatigue, or maybe even like dreading the workout. Those are like signs that like you might be like mentally exhausted, right? And physically exhausted too.
Yeah.
And I think, the nervous system fatigue ties into what I mentioned before about like how a leg day can be like really strenuous and taxing on the body, right? If you're maxing out a lot and you're either in a phase or you're not on a program at all, and you're just maxing out a lot, that could drain on your CNS, your central nervous system. I think kind of comes down to like the root of this question too, is like a lot of those things affect one another, or you can experience DOMS not necessarily because you trained the muscle so hard, but because your nervous system is fried, or you can't get hyped enough for a heavy day that's planned because you're mentally fatigued. So I think like navigating how to identify what's what, I think that's like an important factor to this question. You have something to say?
Yes, I think with the I think with that though, identifying like more risk factors with mental fatigue is like stuff like sleep, workload, external stresses, things that you experience generally outside the gym, and how that impacts you in the gym or with your training, where the muscular fatigue you'll experience more so within the gym itself.
Sure.
So kind of keeping those two things a little bit more opposite in that regard. But the nervous system fatigue can be experienced from all over, right? So your body doesn't necessarily recognize good stress versus bad stress. It just knows stress is stress. It doesn't know if you're getting chased down by a lion in Africa, or if you just ran repeat sprints with the youth kids outside of the pool noodles. Like, you're just sprinting for the skill or survival. It's stress. So some type of exercises that are high stress would be like our Olympic lifting, right? Max out deadlifting, sprinting, right? So kind of doing those things in comparison to like a seated bicep curl, totally different CNS responses, right?
Yeah.
So there's ways that you can keep training through all of this and mitigating the overload of those stress responses on the nervous system. It's just being mindful, following the program, talking with your coaches, being a little bit more dynamic. So those are just things that you want to identify of like risk factors for each.
Yeah, I think people find it a little confusing when we ask about things outside of the gym versus reps and sets. Like when they come in for an assessment, we're like, what's life outside of here? Like, these things play a role and set you up for failure or set you up for success when you do arrive at the gym.
For sure.
I think also I think also like tying into like the next part of this question, which is like the what to do
Yeah.
part of it. You're starting to get into it, like how a seated bicep curl is like an example of like a low stress exercise. And I think that's like the simple solution, right? Wherever the stress is coming from, or wherever the fatigue is really coming from, whether it's because you're super sore, because your head's not in the game, because you've been training really hard and your body's just like bogged down from your nervous system, pivoting into what we call a deload, right? Where it might be like just reducing your volume or reducing your overall load, but sometimes it's just like switching things up entirely, and like let's just do some exercises that are like easy, right? If you're an Olympic lifter and you're doing a lot of snatches and clean and jerks, just hop on like a cable row or like a lat pull down, or use like the squat pro we got here, or whatever, like a leg machine, for your lower body stuff, or maybe even just take a break from the legs for a couple days, right? Like changing up your exercise selection to match where you're at in a current state is a great way to also like refresh your mind too. Like maybe you're just like, man, I just, if you're dreading going into like a snatch workout, maybe you just need to take a break for like a week. Like you're not going to forget. I know it feels like you're going to forget sometimes, but like you're not actually going to forget how to do it. Like take a break, come back next week, get your head back in the game. Like at the end of the day, this stuff's fun. So you got to make sure that you're keeping it fun for yourself.
That actually was a great transition into kind of the other sub question here is like, are there certain workouts you can do? Can you avoid it? But then also, how long does it take to recover? So this is kind of the perfect answer for the stereotypical strength coach. Ready? On three.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
It
It depends. Right? So how burnt out are you? How much stress are you experiencing? How sore are you? How long has it been ongoing? Right? There's like a lot of different factors that play into it. So it's hard to answer with anything more than it depends.
Well,
But
what would you guys say would be the limit? Well, do you need 1 day rest? Do you need a week rest? But like, what's the point where it's like, if you're not recovering past this point, it's like, all right, maybe we got to like sit down and talk about some things and come up with a more unique or individualized strategy. If you're at like a 2 week point of a deload, like, and you're still not feeling fresh enough, like that's a problem. So do you guys think it's before 2 weeks?
I feel like kind of to that point, like it depends on the program. And I think in the programming, like these reloads and deloads, or just like good prescription in terms of the progression, should avoid these like big burnout moments. But in the case that it does, like say you're planning for like a competition period, I don't know, let's just use the Knicks for example, like some of the basketball guys, right? They just came off of winning the national championship or world championship, if you will. And
world champs.
now like they need a little deload. They need their body to recover. How long do they need is a fair question. Like, is it more than 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks? In the small scheme, I think the average gym goer, like if you take 2 weeks off, you should feel pretty refreshed after that. But in the grand scheme of things, maybe they programmed out like a month, right? Knowing like what they're going to build back to. Maybe this is just like GPP. They're still training and doing like things that are outside of basketball, but it eventually builds them back to something more specific.
I mean, there's the concept too that even though they're not playing basketball and they're training intense, like they're probably out playing golf or something. They're doing something somehow. So even though the intensity of it and the intent of it is lower, they're still doing something active, and it's in their nature as professional athletes to be active, right? So I would say 2 weeks to answer your question is probably a really good window to utilize for 99% of people. I would say there's probably always going to be an outlier with that, but if you're going to try and capture the biggest audience, 2 weeks should give us a good window there.
Yeah.
And I guess like if you're in the context of like, if you get to 2 weeks, and just talking about the average person, not necessarily the Knicks, right?
They might need more time.
Right. I think like, 2 weeks for the everyday gym goer, right? I think in the context of, if you aren't recovering from those symptoms beyond that, like you've rested, you've done everything we've just recommended. You rested, you changed up your workouts, you changed up your volume,
Diet's
and
locked in.
the
yeah.
diet's locked in. You're sleeping, and like you're still like your muscles are really achy. You just don't feel like it, or you still feel like you just can't exert force because like of that nervous system fatigue. That's when I think you want to get some specialized care, and there are some strategies that you can implement that are maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressive, but like more forward, and like attacking one thing versus another. But that, I think, you need to refer out to like a specialist, whether it's a PT or someone else.
I would say if the average gym goer isn't seeing a resolution within 2 weeks, my first recommendation is blood work. Like that would be step number one. If all big rocks are addressed, sleep, nutrition, hydration, they're getting in their steps, make sure if all the big rocks are addressed, first thing on my list would be let's get
That's
some
a health problem.
let's get
Yeah.
some blood work done. We'll check out some panels,
Right.
make sure everything's good on that end. And then from there, if blood work comes back clean, then, we're going to refer out to a specialist.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's take
Cool.
the next question.
Here, I think this one we can bump up to number 3 and we'll slide the other 2 down. Good pain versus bad pain. Does no pain really equal no gains?
So yeah, I think this is a common theme. It kind of works both ways with somebody who's new to the gym and then also somebody who's been around the gym for a while. And why I say that is somebody who's new to the gym might be like experiencing like muscle soreness and this quote unquote pain for the first time. And they're like, this hurts. And they're like, I'm doing this exercise and this hurts. I'm like, well, it's supposed to. Yeah, that's like a good thing. And somebody may not know or may not have experienced that, again, pain before. And then we'll flip the coin over and you get somebody who's worked out for a while and they're experiencing pain, but they're trying to push through it. And how do they manage? Like, is it a good pain? And I think that's where, like, the question lies. Like,
Yeah, I think like kind of nail on the head. Like with a beginner, you're gonna experience that soreness for the first couple months, probably, right, on and off. I'd say from a personal experience, I've been training for 15-ish years or something like that. If I get sore every once in a while, like I'm like, yeah, like I got sore. Like that's a
Yeah.
good feeling. But I would say it's kind of like an orange flag if I'm repetitively getting sore from like the same workout. Like if I'm doing like a squat day and that's made me sore the first time I changed it up in my program, like okay, expected. If I'm sore from the second time, I'm like, okay, like I'll take a note of that, but like nothing too alarming. If I'm sore from the same workout a third or a fourth time in a row, then I'm like, all right, like that's like maybe I got to think about this. Like, am I pushing things too hard, or is something else going on, right? Because if you are an experienced lifter and at the gym, you probably won't get sore. But to that point, it doesn't mean that you're not making progress. Like getting sore it might be correlated to a degree, but it doesn't equivalent to progress.
Yeah, I think we touched on that in maybe one of the first questions.
Dom's
yeah,
one.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Dom's one where like the end goal shouldn't just be sore all the time. But a good workout does not mean that you're very sore.
I would say like soreness is probably a byproduct of a good workout, but it doesn't mean it's not a good workout if you're not sore.
Yeah, correct.
So like you can expect to be sore after a good training session, but that shouldn't be the thing that you chase.
Yeah.
I would say also kind of identifying like where the pain is and the type of pain, right? If you're getting it in like the muscle belly versus like the joints,
Yeah.
then like that'd probably be good pain versus bad pain. But I think there's also a little bit of like terminology, especially like the way we try and ask our clients how to do stuff is like the difference between pain, discomfort, and kind of like one of my go-to questions are like, was that beneficial or does that feel beneficial?
What is it? Like, tell me how it feels.
Yeah, like does that feel beneficial? Because they're like, oh yeah, that's like a good pain because it feels beneficial. And I'm like, hey, like you're doing a squat, but like you're feeling it down by the knee. Like, does that feel beneficial? Okay, let's rack it and like let's clean it up a little bit. So like I think if you kind of reference it that way, it kind of exposes and self-corrects that answer of
Yeah.
just like, is it beneficial for me to experience this today, tomorrow, the next day, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's a good recap there. Yeah, because words matter when you're talking about this stuff.
Absolutely. And the next two are going to be more programming related questions. So the first one is, what is the best program split? Should I do a push pull legs?
Like in
Episode
the
26.
we're still talking about the program, but I think the short answer is you have to program for your goals. Push pull legs is fine. You could make a push pull leg workout work for a powerlifting program, for a more hypertrophy bodybuilding focused program, for a general fitness program. Like the way in which you split your workout up, honestly, it probably doesn't even matter that much, right? As long as you're able to recover workout to workout and you're able to perform workout to workout.
Yeah.
We switch it up all the time in our strength and performance class. Like sometimes we'll go through cycles where we do a push pull legs, or we do an upper lower alternating, or we do just a complete full body training split. The split doesn't matter. The exercise selection within the program and the volume matters more, and how it applies to the goal.
Yeah.
So you mean to tell me it depends? Yeah, so with that being said, like push pull legs is probably one of the most popular splits though. Like you get your bro splits, which is like chest tri, back bi, leg day, shoulder day, arm day, right? And then you have push pull legs, upper lower splits. Then you have like movement pattern splits, like you might have like SBD days or snatch days or clean days or anything like that. So to kind of go back to like the way you answered your question was like, it depends on what your goal is, how you want to distribute that volume, what frequency are you doing throughout the week? Do you have the availability to get in 5-6 days? Are you only coming in twice a week? Like, are you doing 3 days? One's a push, one's a pull, one's a leg day, and then the rest of the days you're doing like some sort of active recovery or like, you know, life management stuff. Like there's a lot of different ways that we can go about this, and I think the best way to figure out the best program split is schedule a no sweat intro.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
in the description.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the best program that you'll do, and it matches your goals.
What a way to tie it in. Best program frequency. Should we be doing 6 days a week? Should we be doing 2-3 times? Depends.
I think
I'm more of an 8 times a week kind of guy.
You know, funny you mentioned that, because 8 times a week doesn't have to necessarily be done, you know, in 7 days.
That's right.
It can be like, you know, a morning evening split 4 days a week, right? So it depends on like what your goals are, or it can be across 7 days,
Yeah.
or it can be, you know, that forbidden 8th day of the week. But there's a lot of ways that you can look at what your training is. So like, are you doing preparation for a marathon and you're running in the morning and you're lifting in the evening? Like, what is your split, and what would you consider the most optimal for, like, let's pick a sport, body composition, and like strength. Let's kind of like divvy those 3 up.
I'd say like overarching, the frequency that you're able to commit to is the one that matters the most. But I guess just to kind of relate it to that frame of mind, you know, if you're training for a sport, you're probably doing something every day. Like you're probably doing a 7-day, you know, you're doing something. Yeah, you're doing something 8 days. But that's because, like, you know, you might not be in the gym every day, right? You might be in the gym 3 days a week or 4 days a week or 2 days a week, but you might be practicing your skills on another day. You might be doing an active recovery session, like a mobility workout or something like that. So like for sports, probably every day. Powerlifting takes a lot out of you, you know. I think that depends on what kind of availability and access to recovery you have. Personally, when I was in college, like, and I worked part-time, you know, I would work out 10 days in a row without taking a rest, or before taking a rest, or needing
10
to.
days in 1 week?
Yeah.
But if I tried to work out 10 days in a row right now, like, I don't even think I could. Like, it's just like, I'm happy to get 3 in, you know? So I think, you know, where you're at in life kind of makes a difference, and you can probably apply somewhere in the middle for all the other, you know, goal specific requests you put in, like a bodybuilding or an Olympic lifting. Like, it really, like, you have to match it to your lifestyle and your ability to recover.
Yeah, I would agree. I kind of had the same thing, same thought process with sports, is they're probably going to have higher frequency. They'll be able to, change it up depending on, the resources that we have, and then talking about like your gen pop, you could be on both sides of the spectrum here. You could have people that come every day and it's part of their routine. Hopefully they know that they're mixing up, the stimulus, like, mixing in your strength with more of your circuit based stuff, and then filling in some of your like general like walking zone two. But if you have somebody on the opposite end just getting started, like maybe 2 times a week is perfect for them. And that's going to be the best program that's going to put them in the best position to succeed. So again, it has come back to our famous answer. It depends, but the best program or best frequency is the one that you're going to be able to do, what you're going to be able to recover from, and that if you're tracking progress, you see results.
And then to that beginner standpoint, like twice a week might be enough just because of like that's all they can handle load tolerance wise. But they might need, 6, 7 days a week to kind of get into a habit, create the system, build that like familiarization.
Yeah.
And like those 6, 7 days might just be like one lift and some stretching, like so it depends on how your distribution is, what split of your program, what your main goal is, tying all that in as well. And then I would also kind of piggyback to say like the average class membership here, they're coming in probably like 3 times a week from a class, but there's usually like a fourth or fifth day of some sort of, physical activity, like active recovery. They're walking, they're stretching, they're kind of doing their core, they're doing their correctives, but it's not as intense as like, 3 Ollie days and then like adding in like a max out back squat day on day 4. It's usually some sort of like lower level, low strain, low nervous system, like stimulus type of movement, kind of tying in like our methodology of like athlete first always, so like you don't have to necessarily be a competitive athlete, but we're going to treat you like one. So your skill might be like yard work and laundry and stuff like that compared to like going into the batting cages and taking 150 swings, but like that could be what you're doing in between your training. So it really ties into, you should be doing something a little bit every day, but probably like I would say, kind of saying it out loud now, 3 days seems to be like a good average for most people.
Yeah.
And then if you're that person that benefits from more or less, schedule a no sweat intro.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's our 5 questions we picked for today. You guys have anything you want to add?
No, I think continue to drop your questions in the comments or on Instagram. Send us messages, and definitely for the next Q&A, we'll be sure to address it.
All right, boys. Mach 1 out.